Well, good evening and good morning and happy midday to individuals all over the world who might be joining us for this terrific webinar this morning. I am Monica Powell. I am the Senior Associate Dean and Graduate Dean here at the Jindal School of Management, and we are delighted that so many of our prospective students are joining us today for this really important topic. You know, the number one reason that people don't pursue a graduate degree generally is around the topic of financing the degree. How do they make it happen without taking really exorbitant risk? And so we're going to address that today. And we have a resident expert on that topic, a colleague of mine, who also happens to be the program director for the MS in Business Analytics Flex and Online, Gaurav Shekhar. And Gaurav has put together a terrific presentation. And if there's anybody who should know a lot about this topic, it's Gaurav, because Gaurav has been a program leader here for a long time, but he is also a former international student and he is an alum of our graduate programs here at the Jindal School. So I'm going to turn it over to our resident expert. We are going to make time for your individual questions that you can give us through the chat. So we'll be addressing those at the end of the presentation. But listen keenly to what Gaurav has to say. He's got some great illustrations and scenarios, and you might fit one of those and you can see, wow, a graduate degree really is possible. So Gaurav, why don't you take it away and let's tackle this challenging, difficult, but very conquerable topic this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Powell. Thank you for that warm introduction. And hello to everybody all over the world. We are so delighted you're there with us today. And the fact that right now, as we inch closer to the start of the semester, we know there are a lot of questions in your mind, a lot of questions about how does it feel like to be here at the Jindal School, or what will the degree actually look like? How will the class experience be? How will the student experience be? There are lots of questions, but yes, the most important question is how I'm going to pay for it. I mean, when I was coming to UT Dallas, that was a question on my mind, and I'm sure every time somebody has come to UT Dallas, to the Jindal School, they've always had this question. But the best part about it is there are always ways to take care of your expenses. There are always ways to fund your degree, to fund your dreams, because at the end of the day, this is an investment that you are making here. You're making this investment of money, time, resources, maybe spending time away from your family if you're traveling from abroad to the United States. There are lots of factors here, but it's totally worth it. As a student, as a former student of UT Dallas and somebody who works with hundreds of students, I have never had a moment when I told myself, oh, I think I just put too much at stake. It's always been bigger and better for me every day. And this is just not my story, but something that thousands and thousands of students share with me. People who have graduated from the programs, who are working in some of the top firms in America. They are leading departments, they are holding senior positions, and they're all very proud of one fact, that they were a student of UT Dallas, of the Jindal School at one point of time. And I'm sure that you're going to join that bandwagon. But at this point of time, my friend and my supporter and our in-house producer, Norma, will help us through the slides. So Norma, let's get on and see what do we have here. All right, so the type of expenses that you may have. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. Again, a lot of these expenses could be lifestyle related expenses, but I'm trying to touch on some of the things which you will have in terms of your expenses when we talk about them. So there are your school expenses, and then there are your living expenses. Now, we can, to a great extent, talk about what exactly your school expenses will look like, but as far as living expenses is concerned, as I said, depends on your lifestyle. But having seen so many students over the past years, we kind of have estimated what that number looks like, even with the living as well. So some of the things that are part of your school expenses is your tuition, any related costs which comes with tuition, your school supplies. Again, one of the things that I love about the school is that our ability to provide a lot of resources for students at no cost. Now, that doesn't mean it may not be a cost to us, but to the students, it's no cost. So that way you can get acquainted with those avenues, how to fulfill your academic needs, and that way you can get hold of resources where you are not spending that money and you're using the school's platforms to get access to those things. As far as living is concerned, you have your rent. Now, depends on what kind of accommodation you go in, but most of the students, they either rent out a flat or they rent out a room or they rent out a house, whatever it is. Your utilities will be there for every month, your groceries and other miscellaneous expenses. Again, this has a element of your lifestyle in it. So as you like to live your life, that will determine what exactly the numbers that you're looking at. Norma, next slide, please. So talking about tuition, the number one thing that determines the tuition is how many credits you're taking per semester. And when I say how many credits you're taking, as an international student, let's just take that example. You are required to be enrolled in 9 credits. Unless there is something like an internship for which you can have reduced course load, which means you can enroll in less than 9 credits, or you are in your graduating semester, you're less than 9 credits, you can do that. There are a few other scenarios in which you can go for reduced course load, but let's, for now, just keep in mind that we have to take 9 credits. That's one thing. The other thing is your Texas residency. Now, if you're a domestic student, and let's say you are a resident of the state of California, whether you are in California or you are in India, it's the same tuition. Non-Texas is same across. Then if you've received a scholarship like the Dean's Excellence Scholarship, and in the letter it would mention whether you qualify for in-state tuition or not, that is taken into account, and that makes you eligible for in-state tuition rates. Now, the difference between the rates that we have for a student that has Texas residency versus out-of-state residency is about 2 times. That's the simplest way to look at it. So if you get a scholarship, you also have the ability, and they would mention it in the letter, whether you are eligible for in-state tuition or not, that would save 50% of your tuition. So the discount is because of your residency and your ability to pay in-state resident fees. And then again, if you are enrolled in, let's say, a purely online class, and we're not talking about the COVID world, but your regular semester, and hopefully fall 21 is going to be our first regular semester after the COVID. But in that scenario, if you're taking a class which is completely online, which is designed for online students, which is designed for asynchronous needs, there is an additional cost. But most of our classes that our students take generally, if you're a full-time student, or even if you're a working professional, happens to be on campus. And I'm talking about a regular semester, no COVID here. But one thing to remember is when you are in a flex program, so if your program says flex or it's a state-funded program, it's a normal program, as the credits increase, as you take more and more credits, your per credit hour rate goes down. And we will see in a few seconds what that looks like when we'll go through some of the tables. But the second thing is, if you're part of a program which is a cohort, or it's a non-state funded program, there is flat tuition. Now, depending on what tuition exactly applies to you, what I would recommend is the program you're admitted in, go to the website of that program and check out tuition. It'll say whether it is flat rate or not. Just taking an example, since I'm part of business analytics, the flex program, being a state funded program, it has that variable structure where as the credits go up, the per credit hour rate goes down in the flex program. But if you're a student of the MSBA cohort or the online program, we have a flat tuition structure there. Norma, next slide, please. Thank you. Now, some other expenses, and which are major expenses, and I believe they are some of the most important expenses that you will incur, is your health insurance. Absolutely. One thing that you have to make sure is anytime, whether you are a student here or you move on, you graduate, you're working, at every point of time, you're required to have health insurance. Okay, health insurance bills health-related medical bills can go really high in an unfortunate situation, and your health insurance really takes care of it. Now, at UT Dallas, that health insurance is about $1,200. That can change every year, but it's about $1,200 right now. It is a top of the line insurance. Honestly, the coverage that it has and everything that it helps secure is top of the line. And why it is important is because you don't want to be in a situation where your bills go in the ranges of $10,000-$20,000. And unfortunately, sometimes our students, it could be anything. It could be a chronic disease, or it could be an accident, or some unfortunate situation. At that point of time, your health insurance really helps out. This is an amazing benefit that UT Dallas students have. And at the same time, the Student Health Center is also ready to waive the insurance cost if you're able to provide the proof that you have similar coverage. Now, if you go to the website of our Student Health Center, you can definitely find out what exactly those waiver forms look like. If you just Google health insurance UT Dallas waivers, the first link or the second link that comes up is about, it talks about the waivers, but you can always show proof of another third-party insurance company and get that waiver at UT Dallas. My only recommendation is, and this is a question that comes a lot of times, shall we just go ahead and pay for something and later get waiver? Well, let's say in the scenario, your insurance is not good enough to cover what UT Dallas wants. You would have paid for that insurance and you would not get a waiver here. So what I would recommend is at least, send an email to Student Health Center, tell them about the coverage, and maybe figure out if what UT Dallas is offering and what you are planning to buy from a third party is similar or not. If you want a sage advice here, simply go with what UT Dallas has, because again, it'll make sure that everything is covered there. There's also a supplemental fee for our JSOM students, which is $100 per credit hour. That will be part of your tuition expenses. Norma, next one. So another expense is about your supplies. Now, one of the things that I have personally seen, and this is as a student and as an instructor, both ways, instructors provide a lot of resources through their classes. They will have their presentations, their books, the stuff, everything is out there. And honestly, as a student, it's not always that you have to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on supplies. Now, I don't want to say that for every class that you take, but in most of the classes, either instructors will provide access to free platforms. For example, there are some of our classes that use DataCamp. Now, if you're aware of DataCamp, it's like a sandbox. It's an online third-party portal where you can watch videos, introductory videos for things like R, Python, all your technology stack out there. Plus, you have online sandboxes to practice. And though the subscription is paid for it, but as a UT Dallas student, you get that for free. So again, instead of spending several hundreds of dollars there getting that access, you get that free of class. There are some classes, for example, that teach things related to AWS, and you get access to those materials as well, just because you're a student. So I would say that our instructors really help in lowering the cost by the resources they provide. However, there might be some places where you may incur some cost, for example, any license cost. So even though most of the tools that we use in our classes are available to UT Dallas students, because you're a UT Dallas students for free, there might be some specialized softwares that might require some licenses. And honestly, they are not very expensive. They are anywhere between, let's say, $25 to $100, depending on what course it is. Okay, so that is one thing. Any books that you want to buy now, you can go for something which is totally new, fresh off the press, or UT Dallas has groups where people exchange textbooks. There are other places where you can rent textbooks for much cheaper cost, and we have an amazing library that has more than several hundred thousands of titles that are available for our students. So again, rather than jumping into the market and just buying stuff off it, and that'll definitely be more costly. Rather than that, be aware of what your resources are on campus. Talk to your instructors, and I'm sure I am just putting this cost down. It would not be more than a few 10, 20, $30 per semester that you'll have to spend in those classes. I myself, as a student, when I was here at JSOM, I would not say that I had spent more than maybe $100 over the course of my program. Now that might change slightly here and there. The classes that I teach require a lot of different softwares and a lot of different books, but all of them are provided to the students for free. So again, what I'm trying to emphasize on is that this cost related to supplies can be lowered. Now still I have put $1,000 and $1,500 there, and the reason why that is, it's always good to prepare for a bigger number. You know, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. So if you set aside $1,500 for your supplies, there is a big chance that you will not need all the $1,500, but you're prepared. And preparation is key here. You know, when you talk about funding, and one of the things that I've seen is students who feel challenged at some point with how they will pay, and these are temporary challenges, but people who feel challenged are the ones who did not plan well. If you plan thinking that, oh, the minute I step my foot on campus, I'll get an on-campus job. The minute I'm eligible for an internship, I'll have a $50 per hour internship. The minute I have to get into an apartment, I'll have the biggest apartment for the least price. I mean, these are not really the scenarios that you should think about. You should think about, okay, I'm going to live somewhere. It'll cost me $1,000. I'm just making up figures. If I'm going to go and study, let's say, what will it cost me if I have no internship, I have no job, I have nothing, and I just have to study? That should be the number you should be targeting to make yourself mentally prepared, to make sure you have the right resources, and then jump into it. And you know, with the resources that are available here, I would say students who have, and it's just not me, it's the experience of hundreds and thousands of students who are our alums, that whosoever followed the path that we directed them on, it's a journey that we chart together. They always found success. Sooner or later, you know, somebody might be successful right then and there in a few weeks. Somebody might take a couple of months. The success is there. Again, we are there to support you with all the different things that come up in your life as a student here. But at the same time, it is something that we own jointly. It's a shared responsibility. Norma, next slide, please. Okay. So this is a facility that I would recommend a lot of you to use. And Norma, would it be possible for you to just click on this link and open it up for us? A lot of times we receive questions about you all requiring a statement from us, a statement or an estimate of what our tuition would be. This is something you can calculate yourself. And in a second, when we open this website, what it does is it lets you put your residency, whether you're a graduate student or you're a Texas resident or a non-Texas resident, international student, or you are a graduate student or an undergrad student, and then how many credits you are taking, and it lets you come up with the. So Norma, if you can click on, yes, thank you. So prospective students, let's say we select a graduate student who's a non-resident. Residency status is non-resident, and the term is, so for now, the one available is for the last year, let's say fall 20, because that's going to be our year. We'll go with the variable plan. College and school is JSOM. No, we are good with that. Yeah, JSOM. And let's say 9 hours. And you can see your tuition estimate. You can click on print and view details. I think it'll pop you for the printing. You can cancel that. Okay. Did we upset it? Okay, there you go. Thank you. So you can always print this out. This is your tuition estimate, and you can print this any number of times you have to. It will tell you what the breakdown is for your tuition. And if your banks want a letter, this is a good letter to really use to tell your bank how much it will cost you when it comes to tuition. Now remember, the estimates that we have on the university's website, when you go through the tuition calculator, it'll talk about some living expenses and all. And those living expenses are calculated based on averages that we have seen over the years. Your tuition, your living expense can go higher than that, or it can go lower. But as far as tuition, what you'll pay the school in terms of tuition or any additional supplemental fees is, this is a good way for you to get that that illustration, and that you can share with your banking institution if you're looking for a loan. Norma, if you can close this and go back to the previous page, there's something we want to show. Okay, so for current and admitted students, oh, I'm sorry. If you see on the right-hand side, Norma, I'm sorry, you will see something called tuition plans and rates. Yeah, this is the one. If you go to the second one, tuition rates and variable rate, and 2021, okay. Is it possible for you to make this a little bigger so that our folks can see it? Yes, I think that's good. Thank you. All right, folks, so this is the way you look at what your tuition is. If you have to really look at a grid and try, if we want to make an estimation of what it will be like, the most important column for you to start with is the first column, which talks about how many credit hours you need to take. That's the one where you look at, okay, how many credits are there going to be, and then accordingly decide. Now, if you look at, as an international student, let's go with 9. The next one for you would be the column which says resident graduate or non-resident graduate. Now, if you have Texas residency, let's say you got a scholarship, you will fall under resident graduate. And that's how you look at it. So 9 credits for a resident graduate for our fall and spring semester is going to be 7,280. Now, these are the 2020 rates. There might be a difference in a few months, a very slight difference, but it will be in this range just for your estimations. As a non-resident, you can see that the same 7,280 is now 14,300. If you are a non-Texas resident, you don't have any scholarship, etc., that's the rate that you go with. And one of the things that I've seen a lot of times, and this is something we see over and over again, is, yes, it is an academic scholarship. It's merit-based scholarship. Sometimes some of our very good students, some of the best students who graduate from our programs, may not come in with a scholarship. Does it say anything about their academic ability? Not really. I mean, they had good scores. They were not probably competitive enough when they were coming into the program, but with their hard work, they were able to get a good GPA. They were very engaged in the school. They were offered TAs positions and all, and that helped them offset a lot of costs. So maybe you might end up coming to the school with no scholarship, but honestly, with hard work and with a good performance at school, not only within your classrooms, but also outside of your classrooms, you should be in a position where you're able to make yourself very competitive. And if you have attended any of the sessions that Dr. Powell has had in the past, one of the things she always talks about scholarships is that how getting an initial scholarship versus not getting an initial scholarship. It's not like that the dream to pursue your master's degree or the dream to pursue your higher education is broken if you don't get a scholarship. There are lots of cases where very brilliant students came with no scholarship and they were able to get one later. Or, there are people who came in with a scholarship and they got another one. So again, it's a continuation of your journey and what exactly you do here at UT Dallas that counts a lot. Okay, there is, as my father always said, there is no number that can be pinned on you forever. And things change. There are people who get into an internship, they might be earning $20, $25 an hour, and the next internship is suddenly with Facebook, and they're in the ranges of 40s, 50s, and 60s. So things can change. Anyways, when you look at this table, this is a good way for you to really estimate what your tuition will look like. And Norma, can you just scroll down a little bit and show us below 12 credits? Okay, thank you. So if you can see, as we are going, I'm just looking at the one which is international and 12 credits. It's 17,676 for 12 credits. Now, if you divide that by 12, you will see that the cost as you're going higher on the number of credits is going down per credit hour. But do you see the cost for 13 credits? Do you see the cost for 14 credits? Do you see the cost for 15 credits? It's the same. So 12 onwards, anything after 12 stays there. And another thing to remember is 15 credits is 5 courses. We don't recommend taking 5 courses because if you take too many courses, then you'd have no time left for other co-curricular activities or any kind of FaceTime opportunities with employers. Sometimes you may even have to travel. In a normal world, our students would travel to events, in-person events. And if you really want to have time for that, you need to really take lesser credits. 3 is good for, you're stretching it a little bit, but with 5, things can get challenging. Now, I'm not saying people have not done it in the past. They have, but most of them try to stay in the range of 3 to 4 courses every year. Norma, I think we can go back to the tuition. All right, so this was one link that I definitely wanted to share with you so that you can get your illustrations. Next slide, please. Now the numbers that we just looked at, how do we put them together? So all these numbers are keeping in mind 9 credit hours, because that's, I think, the most common number that we see here every semester for full-time students. Your in-state tuition is going to be about $7,300. Out of state is $14,300. Your health insurance is $1,200. Your miscellaneous fees is, let's say, $900 because it's $100 per credit hour that you're adding to it. Your living expenses, if we have to look at, let's say, $500 to $600 a month, a semester would look like about $2,500. Okay, again, I want to ensure that you understand living expenses depend on your lifestyle. If we put all this together, a student who's paying in-state tuition over the course of 4 semesters to complete his or her degree will be spending about $47,600. Whereas a student who has received no internship, no scholarships, let me take that back. No scholarships, internships you can have, no scholarships, no in-state tuition support, and you're all throughout your degree program, you're paying out of state and you are taking 9 credits on an average, you're looking at about $75,000, including, this is all including your living expenses. So remember that we have taken into account your health insurance, your living expenses, any miscellaneous fees, and all that is there. Next slide, please. What are your funding options? How can you really pay for this? So you have your, let's start with on-campus options. You have your student worker positions that you are eligible for from the very first semester. Student worker is not a TA. Okay, student workers are, we have several departments on campus. We have departments like parking, dining. There are lots of departments that have needs related to front desk. There are, we have our student analysts or we have student assistants, all these different jobs. There are policing, parking, lots of different on-campus jobs. You can apply for them once you're enrolled in the program, and you get access to a portal called Handshake that we use for our internships, full-time jobs, as well as our on-campus jobs, and that's where you can look for jobs. You cannot apply for a job before you come into the program. Unless you're enrolled, you'll not be able to. But that pays on an average about $10 an hour, which means that what you're getting at the end of the month is somewhere in the range of $450 to $500, looking at it. If you become a TA or an RA, that is something that can happen from the second semester because we need your UTD GPA, and you want to make sure that you have that experience at UT Dallas before you jump into being a TA or an RA. And that will pay you about $1,000 after taxes. But if you are categorized as an out-of-state student, that makes you eligible for in-state tuition for that particular semester. If you have an internship, and just going by our numbers, the average is $23, which is really, really competitive in the industry, we're looking at somewhere around $3,500 to $4,000 right there. So $3,700 is what we are looking at as an average. Now, again, if you earn more, of course, your pay goes up. Your scholarship, something like Dean's Excellence Scholarship, if it gives you that in-state tuition benefit, it will specify that on the letter, but that is a one-time award of $1,000. Plus, if you get this in fall, your fall and the next spring, you will be eligible for in-state tuition. And just thinking about the difference that you're saving in terms of tuition is $1,000 plus an average of about $7,000 to $8,000 if you're taking 9 credits. So you're saving about $16,000, $17,000 on your tuition. And that is a massive, massive savings there. Now, another thing that sometimes happens is you can get a third-party scholarship. Now, those third-party scholarships are something that students apply themselves. It could be, let's say, a local nonprofit, or let's say in your own home country, you have your local state government who's giving out scholarships to people who want to pursue higher education outside of India. All those avenues are welcome. You reach out to them, you make sure that you apply to whatever avenues that they have. And at the same time, when they give you that scholarship, you simply work out with the bursar's office and make sure that that institution is able to transfer the money to UT Dallas. But that is something that our students pursue themselves. Lastly, one of the most common avenues is education loans. And there's nothing wrong in taking education loans. Again, sometimes you need that money up front. You may not have all the resources to get yourself ready, but education loans have made higher education very affordable, very possible. I would say the right word is possible here. I mean, I myself would not have been able to do this on my own if I did not have an education loan. And I think almost all of our students take those loans because that gives you that financial strength to go and pursue this. And then there are ways through which you can pay it back, and the kind of numbers, the kind of salaries our students are getting while they are interning as a current student or after they graduate. UT Dallas is the #1 institution in the state of Texas with the highest return on investment. And we are just not saying that because it's a great thing to say. It is actual numbers that are making it possible. When I talk, let's talk about the business analytics program, for an example, or for any of the other Jindal programs. We have a range of $80,000 to $100,000 for an institution where a student is earning between $80,000 to $100,000. That means that your ability to pay back a loan worth, let's say, 50, 60, 70,000, you are really in a very strong spot. And even if you're paying, let's say, a meager $1,000 a month or $1,500 a month, you still have a lot of money for your sustenance. If you're trying to support your family, you can do that as well. And at the end of the day, you might even have some money left over as savings. So our students, year after year, have gone through this process. They've taken loans, they've paid back those loans. And in most of the cases, the institution will give you about 7 to 12 years, depending on which institution it is, to pay back. Our students take about 3.5, 4 years to pay it back, which shows the kind of roles that they're getting into. There are some times when students are in a job where towards the end of the year, they get a massive bonus. And what they do is they take the whole amount and they put it into their the loan account, paying off massive chunks sometimes at the end of the year. So again, there are different ways to do that. But what I'm trying to tell you here is that there are a lot of ways to make your education possible. So don't think that, maybe at this point of time, right at this point of time, you may not have decided what option you're going to take. But connect with us. If you're feeling that you don't have the right options, connect with us, and we'll be able to provide some additional info on top of what you're going to see now. Next slide, please. So let's say that you're just an illustration, and this is a general illustration. You have $40,000 as liability, which means this is your outstanding loan amount. Taking into consideration, you may have done some internships, you may have paid back some amount, but you have about 40,000. At 80,000 per annum, you're earning about $6,700 per month. After taxes is about $5,400. If you're only giving, let's say, $1,000 a month, you're paying it off in about 3.5 years. And this number, honestly, since I've gone through this number myself, I know how true it is, because at none of the stages of paying back my loan, I was ever at a place where I felt uncomfortable paying it, or I felt that, maybe it's a problem. And we have had students with, I mean, this is an average profile that I'm sharing with you. People who fall in this bucket, they've had no problems. And every year we see this number getting pushed up and up in terms of how much money our students make, which means every year we see you becoming more comfortable. It is becoming more easy for you to pay back your educational loans. Norma, next slide, please. So some of the illustrations that I wanted to show you in case, some numbers are going in your head right now and you're kind of putting yourself in a spot as to what your expenses will look like. Let's look at some of the scenarios. So the first scenario is an out-of-state student. Your tuition plus living expenses is about $75,000. You have no internship, no scholarship, no internship, no on-campus job. You're just coming to school, just studying here, and you took an education loan of $60,000. What you're graduating with is an overhead of $15,000, which means that through your other sources, which could be your savings, it could be, some friends, family, parents, siblings, whatever it is, that's your liability. That's your actual overhead. Now, there are institutions who every year, I mean, this figure of $60,000 was not $60,000 all along. It started from a lower number and it is going up and up. And there are institutions that are coming up that understand this increase in tuition or the rate of inflation, and they try to adjust that in the amount that they sanction to students. So $15,000 is what you have to look for. Next slide, please. Now, let's say you're still an out-of-state student, but this time you didn't receive a scholarship in the first year, but you received it in the second year. And in the second year, that means half of your degree you can pay. Let's assume the second year is half of your degree. You're paying in-state rates. So now instead of $75,000, you're looking at $60,000 in tuition. See how it came down substantially? And then you were an on-campus student worker for the first 2 semesters. You earned about $4,000 there. You interned for 2 semesters, earning about $35,000 there. When you graduated, your actual overhead was $21,000. And remember, there is no education loan that we are factoring here. However, if you factor in education loan, and again, these numbers cannot be added straightforward. You have to also keep in mind that you would be using your education loan for any of the upfront costs, like paying your tuition at the start of the semester, etc. But if you look at it, you will somewhere land in the region of about $20,000 worth of loan amount that you will not be using out of the 60 that was initially sanctioned to you. And that's a great situation. Again, you can have a sanction of X $1,000 and you may not use all of it. So that's again a great situation there that you can see you did not start with a scholarship, but there were lots of favorable things that helped you financially over your time here. And as I said, with hard work, anything is possible here. Next slide, please. Now, instead of being a student worker, this is a student who became a TA in the second semester. You started your first semester as a student on-campus worker, and then in the second semester, you became a TA. So honestly, the first semester was the one where you did not have any scholarship or any tuition assistance, but from the second semester, you had a TA-ship. And then later on, in the second year, you had a scholarship. I mean, this is a great, great scenario. And this is a real scenario. This has happened with some of our great, great students. They were on-campus student workers. They interned, they earned really great salaries. Their actual overhead at the end of, right now they are graduating, and their actual overhead when they take their education loan out of the picture is only about $11,000. You bring that education loan, and again, you just adjust it, you see that, about $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 again. The last figure that you're seeing of the unused education loan amount, this is something that, again, it's not a, it's a very conservative number. Why? Because we want to make sure that we prepare the best. So that's why we are keeping that number down. But absolutely, this is possible. And what happens is while you are a student, because of these different revenue channels that you have, these income channels that you have, you're able to start paying off your education loan while you're a student. You know, a lot of banking institutions tell you that, okay, they've given you a certain loan, but if you start paying the interest that you're accruing on it, your amount that is due after you graduate will be much lesser. And that interest is sometimes it's a small amount, but it's something that shows regular payback to your education loan amount. By being a TARA or an on-campus worker or an intern, you're able to really pay that interest amount back very easily and very comfortably. Next slide, please. All right, so you are an out-of-state student and you receive a scholarship with which you are able to pay your full tuition. So you get it for the first year, you get it for the second year. You are paying all of your tuition as a Texas resident, even though you might be an international student. You're looking at the tuition being under your living expenses being about $47,000. You're also an on-campus worker for the first 2 semesters. You become an intern for the next 2. Your actual overhead would look like about $8,000. So anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000, realistically. You have an education loan that was sanctioned to you, but really you did not use the whole of it. Why? Because you had ways to pay off your tuition. And it happens a lot of times. Our students might start with an education loan, and then in the second year they get a scholarship, an internship, and they don't want to use the education loan amount anymore. They want to pay off through their monthly salaries, and that's perfectly possible. UTD actually allows you to get on a payment plan where instead of paying upfront at the start of the semester, you can break down your payments into 2 or 3 different payments over the course of the semester. And again, you look at the unused loan amount here, you have lots that you're not using. Again, these are just numbers that we are estimating, but based on your situation and scenario, you'll somewhere land around these numbers. Next slide, please. And finally, you are an in-state tuition student, you are a Texas resident, your tuition will look like this, about $47,000. You worked on campus for a semester, you interned for 2 semesters, and then you graduated with less than $10,000 as an overhead. And let's say you took an education loan, or mostly even credit card companies. If you're a US citizen, your credit card company might be offering you something at a very low rate of interest. You still are looking at about 2/3 of that loan amount that is unused. And there are multiple ways through which you can concurrently pay for your tuition. What I want to really emphasize here is, student debt is something that is big, and depending on which country you come from or where you are, it can significantly become big. But looking at how UT Dallas students have fared, Jindal School students have fared in the last several years, we feel that in terms of that burden of your education loan, most of our students are at the mid or the lower end of it, which really talks about your ability as a future Jindal student to pay back. That's why we are number 1 in the state of Texas when it comes to the return on investment. Next slide, please. There are some third-party options apart from what we discussed. Again, there are tons of banking financial institutions or non-banking financial institutions that give out loans. Some of these, this is not an official endorsement of these brands, but these are some of the third parties that our students have been using for their funding opportunities. Prodigy Finance, Empower, Avance, GradRight. Again, GradRight is something where it's like a marketplace where you can go and bid for what is the best institution to give you a loan. But what I would recommend is just go to their websites, how to apply for a loan, what is the process. Everything is explained to the last word. One of the things that I like about some of these institutions is a lot of them give you a loan right here in the US without a cosigner. And if you're an international student, getting a loan right in in the US without a co-signer is a big deal. And they try to keep their rates of interest also very competitive. Most of the times they're in single digits. Now, I will not speak for everybody of you who's on the webinar right now because your financial profile might change that rate of interest. But a lot of times, we hear people paying 13, 14, $15 of percent interest rate in their home countries. And if you have something which is giving you an education loan for less than $10, 10%, I don't know why I'm not able to say percent today, but at less than 10%, it's a very good situation. So definitely would like you to see this or any other third party that is offering similar loans. Again, every semester we see more and more companies out in the market that are helping out students and making it affordable. So again, it goes back to the fact, can I afford it? The answer is yes, you can. There are options out there. There are several people out there who can help you in getting these loans. Norma, next slide, please. Finally, if you have questions, our best avenue is email. We have these webinars regularly, and you'll have webinars with program directors, you'll have webinars with Dr. Powell, you will have webinars with our advising team, us. There are lots of ways to connect to us. Or you can simply, if you're still looking to apply, and have that in mind, jindal.utdallas.edu/apply, or just simply email us at jindal@utdallas.edu. We'll be more than happy to help you. Dr. Powell, would you like to add something here at this point of time?
Gaurav, thank you so much for letting me chime in here at the end. I stand in awe of our students. I've been here 14 years this year, and I just think back to all of the students who have embraced their dreams to come to the United States to advance their careers and their lives, and how they have just conquered what I'm sure seems very overwhelming from a financial perspective, and have just made their dreams come true. And we talk to students all the time whose lives, not only their life, but the life of their family back home, have been dramatically transformed. So I believe, they just believe so strongly in the decisions that they've made, and they're willing to take the leap of faith. And it's really amazing. It's such incredible stories that our students tell us. And these are difficult decisions. And the more information you have, the more you understand, the more you manage your risks, the greater possibilities there are. And I really appreciate greatly the content of your session, Gaurav, today, because I think you put it into very concrete terms in a very realistic way through your different scenarios about, look at this is possible, and this is possible, and everybody brings a different situation to the table, but you definitely have indicated the ways that our students have made their dreams come true. So thank you for that presentation. And I'm just betting, Norma, that there are some questions that might be in the chat, and we are glad to take those questions as well.
Yes, we do have a lot of great questions. How many internships are we able to do at JSOM?
Wow, that's a great question. Generally speaking, students do 3. When they've had, great success, they will do 3 1-credit-hour internships. There's a very important course that students take in their first semester that they are here called MAS 6102. It's professional development. We teach students how to understand the job market in the U.S., how to prepare for it, how to get everything ready, from learning how to prepare an American-style resume that employers are expecting to see, how to interview, and how to navigate the internship and final placement options that are out there. A lot of students will say, well, I don't want to do that. I have work experience in, Singapore and Mumbai and South Korea. Why do I need to take this course? Well, it has been proven over and over again, the number of students that come at the end and say, oh my gosh, how could I have done it without that course? In fact, I just finished teaching the second to the last class of professional develops for your students, Gaurav, yesterday, and the students came up to me at the end of class and were like, oh my gosh, I couldn't have read this in a book. I couldn't have watched it on a YouTube video. So we do a lot to help students. We tell them how hard they're going to have to work, but we give them the tools to do it. So generally it's 3. And generally students want to extend internships and have the greatest opportunity they can for practical experience. Many of those internships lead to full-time job offers and an H-1B opportunity.
When can we start doing internships?
At the completion of 18 credit hours. Gaurav, do you want to talk a little bit about why that is at 18?
Absolutely. It's the midpoint of your degree program. And we want to make sure that you have some substantial skill sets that you take to the market. Now, with an internship, there is always a component of learning new things, but what do you present to the table? And that is something that we want to make sure that you are equipped with before you start your internship.
So you mentioned earlier about teaching assistantships. This person asks if grad students are given a TA, and they've heard that PhD students generally are given priority.
Wow, that's a really great question. So we have a lot of master's students who are given teaching assistantships. They are not given them as brand new students. They're given to continuing students who have performed very well in their academic classes. But actually the bulk of the TAs here are master's students. Yeah, PhD students are required as a part of their academic journey to be teaching assistants, but the bulk of our TAs are master's students.
And Dr. Powell, if I can just mention a number there, since I hire students for our department, about 70% of our TAs are master's students.
That's a big number.
That is a big number.
Gaurav, earlier you were talking about student worker positions, and this person says, as an international student, we are allowed to work for 20 hours a week. So that would equate to $800 if it was $10 an hour. And they ask, is this calculation correct, or is tax deducted from the salary as well?
There would be tax that is deducted, but if you lie in a certain bracket at the end of the year, if your earnings are below a certain number, that depends on what the current tax bracket is, you would get a refund. If not, upfront, UT Dallas will deduct tax. Absolutely.
If this person asks about ISA, the Indian Student Association Scholarship, do you know, and I'm not sure if we can answer this here, but do you know if that would make them eligible for in-state tuition?
I don't know the answer to that. Gaurav?
I do know that the answer to that. I'm the faculty advisor for ISA. It would not make you eligible.
This person asks about the Dean's Excellence Award. Is it renewed after one academic year, or do they need to reapply for scholarship?
Great question. So the Dean's Excellence Scholarship is an academic merit-based award. It entitles an individual when they receive it for 2 consecutive semesters of in-state tuition. It doesn't give them 3. They're generally 3 academic semesters in a year, a fall, a spring, and a summer. Most of our international students don't take classes in the summer. It gives you 2 semesters of in-state tuition for just that first year. You would need to apply for other kinds of awards in the second year. We do have continuing Dean's Excellence academic merit-based scholarships for the second year of the program. We do have donor-based scholarships, and we also have impact scholarships that are awarded to exceptional students who give us high service to the school through student organizations. So there are options for students in the second year.
We've had a couple people ask about our JSOM graduate scholarships. A couple questions associated with that. How long does it take to receive a decision? Do you need a GMAT or GRE to apply? And what does the committee look like when they're awarding those scholarships? Wow.
Well, the committee looks entirely stressed out because we get lots and lots of applicants for that. And we go over every file to the nth degree. So we're a little gray-headed and heavily wrinkled. But we're very thorough in what we do. So that was the third question. What were the other 2, Norma?
So what the committee looks at, if you need a GMAT or GRE, and how long does it take to receive a decision?
Great questions. So yes, any individual who has been admitted to the school in a graduate level degree to be considered for a scholarship in the scholarship app, you must submit an official GMAT or GRE score. You could have been admitted with a waiver, which meant you didn't need to submit a score and you were given an admission decision. But if you want to be considered for a scholarship, you must submit an official GMAT or GRE score, and you must actually apply for the scholarship. There is a space on our website, Norma can put it into the chat, where you have to actually go and apply. And you will not be considered for a scholarship until you've been admitted and those official scores have been seen. Now, how do we select the candidates? It is a merit-based award, so there is going to be a lot of emphasis on previous academic performance and GMAT and GRE scores, but it is holistic. We are looking at your entire file. Generally, to increase your chances, you can't change your past. So the only thing you can do is maybe submit a higher GMAT or GRE score. But it is an academic merit-based scholarship. But we are very thorough. We look at your work experience. We look at your resume. We look at your application. When we get hundreds and hundreds of those, we're doing it on a rolling basis. So what that means is every week we are looking at the pool of applicants, and we are looking for the most competitive applicants in that pool based on the criteria that has been set at that time. And so we are always making awards. Every week we make awards. Now, if you applied a long time ago and you have not heard anything from the scholarship committee, it is likely that you are not competitive to the pool. But because we are always looking for the top candidates to award each week. We just made those awards yesterday. I love that day when we identify who the new recipients are and we notify them.
Perfect. I'm going to go and get Gaurav on screen for this next question. Are these numbers for the different illustrations tuition plus living costs or just tuition?
So the total number that I start with at the very beginning is inclusive of both living as well as tuition. Perfect. So when I said $75,000, it didn't mean that our tuition is $75,000. It includes your living expenses.
Thank you, Gaurav, for that clarification.
And another question for you. When would you suggest that somebody applies for an on-campus job? Should they wait till they get their F1 visa, or can they start early?
Well, as soon as you are enrolled in your coursework is when you will get access to the portal. And once you have access to the portal, that's when you should start looking for it. But remember one thing, you cannot start your employment unless you are here in the United States. And that is important for you. You can browse around. Let's say you get registered a little early, your holds are removed and you're able to register and you get access to the portal, browse around. But honestly, come here, get acquainted with the campus, get acquainted with UTD, and maybe start off at that point of time.
We have some students here who are interested in the double degree, adding an MBA to their MS. How much of an increase in cost would that be estimated?
That's a great question. Let me just pitch to Gaurav with regard to the specifics, but let me say this. A student who comes in, and typically a master's student, Masters of Analytics, Masters of Supply Chain, Masters of Management Science, generally our international students are here for 2 full years. So they do courses in the fall, courses in the spring, do internship in the summer, continue internship in the fall with courses, maybe continue internship in the spring, more courses, and graduate in May of that second year. Now, if you add on an MBA or an MS, we don't have as many that do the MS combination as we do the MS MBA combination. The fewest number of courses that you would have to take to be awarded that degree, depending upon the combination, would be about 63, but could be as high as 73, depending upon if you were combining an MS in finance with an MBA, it's a few more courses. If you're combining an analytics degree with an MBA, Gaurav, is it 63?
63.
It's 63. So you can go back to those tuition tables and you can look at, okay, where could I add a few more courses? Instead of taking 9 credit hours, add 12 that semester, and you can quickly, over 4 long semesters, or maybe even over a summer while you're doing an internship, add some courses here and there that can get you up to that. But generally speaking, many of our students do it in 2 full years, or they do it in 2 full years in 1 semester. But Gaurav, tell us from your perspective as a program director.
I think what you mentioned is correct, because most of the students, when they know that they're doing a second degree, they will try to add up credits in a certain semester. They might not start with that, but as they get closer to graduation, they will have semesters that range anywhere between 12 or 15 credits sometimes. But let's say you want to go at the rate of 9 credits per semester. If you're looking at an MS MBA, the numbers that I showed you, just multiply that by 1.75. So your second degree comes at 3/4 the cost. If you're doing an MS plus MS, then your second degree comes at 52% of the cost. So whatever you spend for your first degree, add another half of it, and that's how your MS and MS is. So 1.5 and 1.75. Remember those numbers, because that's kind of the max that you'll have to spend. But as Dr. Powell said, take more credits, reduce your cost.
Yeah, and be sure, I mean, you want to be admitted to that second degree.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to meet the admission criteria to be admitted to add on that degree program, or change your degree program to an MS MBA combination.
Perfect. So those were all of the most common questions that I saw. It looks like we're approaching the end of the webinar, so I wanted to give you both an opportunity for closing remarks.
So Gaurav, how can you cheer them on?
Well, the only way to cheer them on is that we are waiting for you right now. We are getting ready for the next semesters to make sure that we are ready for you. We make sure that right from the time you step your foot on campus, you have the experience that you always dreamt for, and maybe a better experience that you never thought you could get here. Again, it's not just me speaking, but it's the experiences of thousands of our students who are right now in our programs and ones who have graduated, that this was the best decision of their lives. Then we are your champions. We are your cheerleaders. Anything that you do academically, professionally, tomorrow you make $1 million, we'll take credit for that. That's another thing. But this is going to be really a life-defining and a life-changing moment for you. And I'm saying it from a perspective of somebody who has done it. And I can very well say it for thousands of people who have done it. So we look forward to you here on campus. And honestly, there is no barrier. The biggest barrier was, you just thinking that you want to do a master's degree. And I know a lot of you got admitted to the program. So I think the biggest hurdle is over. Now is what is there in the future for me to look forward to, and what can be done in the future. And we are here to support you. Dr. Powell.
Gaurav, you said that so well. I would show you underneath my desk so you could see my pom-poms with regard to being the cheerleader of our graduate students. We've been through a difficult last year for the entire world. And the one thing that I guess I appreciate most when times have been as dire as they have for global health and the economy, there are some really great rosy days ahead. And there's no better time than after a storm to pick up the pieces and go forward and make the impossible happen. So I hope that you'll think about making that happen here, because this is a really unique location in the United States. We have the most incredible culture that is so welcoming of a diverse and rich background of students. And it is those students that bring the heart and the soul to what we do day in and day out. And we hope that you'll think about what we've talked about today, what Gaurav has outlined, and think about saying, I can do that. And here's where I want to do that. And you'll come to the Jindal School. So on behalf of the school and Gaurav and our amazing producer, Norma, thank you so much for giving your time this evening to come and visit with us. We're grateful that you have invested in our application process and being admitted. And if you have any questions, any concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. The email addresses are on the screen, and we hope that you'll let us help you answer the difficult questions. One thing you can be certain of is that we'll always shoot straight with our students. We value you as if you're part of our own family, and we'll take care of you just the same. So thank you for being with us. And Gaurav, thank you for being here. Norma, thank you for producing today. And if you have any questions, be in touch with us. Please stay tuned for other webinars that we have about the admissions process, specific webinars in degree programs where you can learn specifically about the curriculum. We're here to help you in any way we can. So thank you for joining us. We hope you'll be in touch soon.